Have you ever felt like the moment you start asking a woman about her past, something changes? Her words become more careful. Her smile, just a little more rehearsed. It's not because she's lying, it's because, like all of us, she wants to be seen in the best light. But what if I told you that the real story, the one she's not saying, has already started unfolding? Not in her words, but in her behavior. Most guys make the same mistake. They ask too soon about her past, her heartbreaks, her childhood, her exes, and on the surface, it feels honest, like you're opening up a real connection. But here's the truth: the moment you ask, she starts editing. She filters, rephrases, reshapes her story, not necessarily to deceive you, but to protect herself. That's human. But it also means the version of the past you're getting is curated. Now imagine this: what if you never had to ask? What if everything you needed to know about her history, what hurt her, what healed her, and what still haunts her, was already visible in the small things she does? In this video, I'll show you how to read the signs she doesn't even know she's showing. Because the past doesn't hide. It lives right there in front of you, waiting to be seen. Sign number 1, her relationship with attention. One of the fastest ways to glimpse into a woman's emotional history is to notice how she deals with attention, especially from men. Not just how she reacts when you compliment her, but how she behaves in a room full of strangers. How she moves online. How she responds when the spotlight lands on her. Even just for a moment. Does she brush it off with ease? Or does she light up like someone who's finally being seen for the first time? Notice how often she brings up male attention without being prompted. Mentions of guys in her DMs. Flirty encounters at the gym. Or how men just won't leave her alone. These aren't always stories for your amusement. Sometimes, they're signals, not of vanity, but of a deeper need. Because here's the deeper truth: a woman who was ignored, overlooked, or made to feel invisible, whether in past relationships or even in childhood, may unconsciously start tying her worth to how much attention she gets. And she might not even realize it. It's not about ego, it's about reassurance. There's a crucial difference between a woman who enjoys attention and a woman who needs it to feel whole. One flirts with confidence, the other clings to it like oxygen. And when that attention isn't coming from you, she may chase it elsewhere, not to betray, but to survive emotionally. That's not disloyalty, it's an emotional addiction she never named. So don't just watch what she does. Ask yourself why she does it. Does she want admiration, or true connection? That one question can uncover more about her past than hours of conversation ever will. Sign number 2, how she talks about other women. You can learn a lot about a woman, not just by how she talks to you, but by how she speaks about other women. Her friends, her co-workers, even strangers passing by. Listen closely. Is her tone supportive, empathetic, or is it loaded with sarcasm, competition, or quiet judgment? If every other woman is fake, messy, trying too hard, or probably cheating, you're not just hearing personality, you're hearing a history, old wounds, insecurities that never fully healed. Maybe even betrayals that left her guarded and sharp. Women often express unresolved pain through projection. A woman who constantly criticizes others for being too flirty may have been cheated on. One who doubts every woman's success may feel like she's been left behind in her own life. And when she says, "I just don't get along with other women," that's not confidence. That's caution. That's emotional armor. It might mean she's been burned before. It might mean she's used to competing for love, approval, or attention. And in that world, kindness becomes weakness. If she's truly at peace with herself, she's likely at peace with other women too. But if she sees every woman as a threat, you have to ask, what part of her past taught her that life is a war zone? Sign number 3, her conflict style, how she responds when things go wrong. If you truly want to understand someone's emotional past, don't just observe how they act when everything is smooth. Watch them when things get messy. Because conflict, real or subtle, doesn't create problems. It reveals them. You don't need to wait for a screaming match or some movie-worthy meltdown. Just pay attention in the little moments. When plans change. When you forget something she mentioned. When she feels misunderstood or unseen. In those cracks of daily friction, what comes through? Does she go silent and withdraw behind polite smiles? Does she lash out, accuse, or try to make you feel like the bad guy? Or does she pause, stay present, and attempt to communicate clearly? These aren't random reactions. They're emotional blueprints, copied straight from her past. A woman who was abandoned, neglected, or punished for expressing emotions may shrink when there's tension. She learned silence meant safety. That staying quiet was how you avoided rejection. On the flip side, if she learned that vulnerability led to pain, she might strike first, fight before being hurt. You will notice it in how fast she escalates a moment, or how fast she disappears from it. If her instinct is to assume the worst about you, she might still be reliving a storyline written by someone else. And you're just playing a role she didn't realize she cast you in. This is why you don't need to interrogate someone about their past. Most people don't retell their pain, they relive it. Especially during conflict. So don't ask, why are you acting like this? Instead, ask, what version of love did she grow up with? Because her conflict style isn't just a reaction to you. It's a replay of how she learned to protect her heart. Sign number 4, her relationship timeline, without direct questions. Here's a secret, you don't have to ask her, when was your last relationship? To figure out her emotional history. In fact, asking directly often invites the edited version, the polished story she's already told 100 times. But if you listen carefully, you will hear the real story anyway. It hides in the details. In passing phrases. In how she refers to places, people, and times. For example, if she casually says, I used to love that sushi place. We went there all the time. Pause. That we probably doesn't mean her cousin. Breadcrumbs like that appear constantly, if you're tuned in. Notice how often she refers to time. Does she say, that was 2 years ago, with clarity, or does she avoid timelines completely, skipping over emotional milestones like they're irrelevant? Women who are emotionally clear tend to speak with grounded time references. But when someone avoids context, when things are blurry or vague, it can signal feelings they haven't processed yet. Phrases like after everything fell apart, or I had to rebuild myself, are more than poetic storytelling. They hint at deeper emotional shifts, at pain, growth, or both. So stop trying to extract answers. People tell their truth most clearly when they're relaxed, when they're just talking, not performing. And sometimes, the silence around a particular chapter in her life says far more than any confession ever could. Sign number 5, her views on men in general. One of the most revealing things a woman shares, without realizing it, is how she talks about men as a whole. Not you, not her ex, but men. As a concept, does she speak with curiosity, respect, humor, or is her tone sharp, bitter, or defensive, even in passing? When she laughs and says, "Ugh, men are the worst," it might sound playful. But if that comment keeps showing up, always with a sting behind it, that's not a joke anymore, that's a scar. Because no one ends up presenting an entire group without personal experience. If she constantly assumes men are cheaters, liars, emotionally unavailable, it's probably not from reading too many psychology books, it's from living it. And while she may treat you well for now, her beliefs about men don't vanish just because you bring flowers or remember her coffee order. Beliefs forged in pain tend to outlive logic, and when things get rocky, those beliefs will resurface. She might pull away before you even know something's wrong. She might get suspicious over silence, or expect betrayal before trust has even had a chance. That's not drama. That's memory, running in the background like an old program she forgot was still open. Understanding this doesn't mean you judge her, it means you see her clearly. And then ask yourself honestly, are you stepping into a relationship, or into the ruins of someone else's heartbreak? Because sooner or later, if she's still carrying the weight of every man who failed her, she'll expect you to carry it too. Sign number 6, how she talks about her family. If you really want to understand how a woman forms emotional bonds, look at how she speaks about her family, especially her parents. You don't have to dig deep or pry into her childhood. You simply need to pay attention to the tone she uses when mentioning the people who raised her. Does she talk about her dad with warmth, with distance? Or does she toss out a casual, "Yeah, he was around, I guess," whatever? That whatever may sound indifferent, but often, it's doing the heavy emotional lifting of disappointment she's never fully unpacked. Her relationship with her father, in particular, often shapes how she views men, trust, and emotional security. If she had to work hard to earn love as a child, she might feel the need to constantly prove her worth in a relationship. If her father's affection came and went like a flickering light, she may have learned to expect that love always comes with conditions, or consequences. On the other hand, if she grew up in an emotionally safe and nurturing home, you'll likely see that stability reflected in how she communicates. She might handle tension calmly. She might express her needs clearly, without fear of judgment or abandonment. That's the power of early emotional programming. It becomes the operating system quietly running in the background of her adult life. You're not looking for dramatic confessions. You're watching how she reacts when you mention holidays, childhood, or family time. Does she light up with nostalgia, or shut down behind a quick shrug? People rarely outgrow the emotional language they were raised with. So if you want to understand how she'll love you, watch how she learned to love at home. Sign number 7, what makes her emotional, and what doesn't. There's something deeply revealing about what stirs a woman's emotions, and just as telling what doesn't. You're not only watching for tears or intense reactions, you're looking for what cuts through her armor, what touches a nerve. It could be a movie scene about abandonment that makes her go suddenly quiet, a breakup song she skips every time, or a throwaway comment that hits harder than expected. Those moments, they're not random, they're echoes of old pain. Sometimes, what shakes her isn't even romantic. It might be something small, being left out of a group dinner, or someone speaking to her in a sharp tone. And if she reacts with more intensity than expected, or shuts down completely, don't write it off as being too sensitive. That response is a signal. It says, this has happened before. This hurt once. And maybe I'm still not over it. But here's the other side of that coin. What if nothing seems to affect her? If she's completely unfazed by things that would move most people? If she brushes off vulnerable moments with jokes or silence? That, too, is a message. Because detachment isn't always strength. Sometimes it's a shield, built early, worn for years. So how do you learn what truly moves her? You observe. Not when she's performing, not when she's on, but in those unguarded seconds. A look in her eyes, a change in posture, a breath she didn't know she was holding. Those are the emotional highlighters that point to who she used to be, and maybe who she's still trying to protect. Sign number 8, observation over interrogation. The wisest men don't get answers by asking 1,000 questions. They get answers by watching what most people overlook. They don't dig for stories. They let the truth leak out, in the spaces between words, in the habits, the pauses, the slip-ups she doesn't even notice. That's the difference between interrogation and observation. Anyone can ask, What happened in your last relationship, and they likely get a version she's rehearsed and sanitized. But the man who truly pays attention, he already knows. He noticed the way she flinched when you cancelled a plan, how she pulled away when the conversation got too intimate, how she lit up when someone praised her for something deeper than her appearance. These aren't coincidences, they're emotional fingerprints. Being observant doesn't mean being cold or analytical. It means being emotionally intelligent. It means reading the room, reading her, with a quiet depth that sees beyond the surface. Because when you rely only on what she says, you're often buying the story she tells herself to survive. But when you rely on observation, you see the real woman underneath. The one who might still be hurting. The one who might be ready to grow. Or the one who simply isn't. Either way, you'll know. And that kind of clarity, that's not just power, that's freedom. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most men out there. Why? Because now, you're not just listening to what a woman says, you're seeing who she is. You've stepped beyond surface level conversations, beyond the highlight reels, and into something far more powerful, emotional awareness. And once you begin to observe with this kind of clarity, everything changes. You stop falling for potential. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. You stop wasting time with someone who says she's ready, but whose past is still pulling the strings. Instead, you begin choosing with intention. You begin connecting with women who are truly present, who've faced their past, and are capable of building something real with you. That's the difference between dating blind and dating awake. If even one part of this video gave you a new insight, or confirmed something you've always felt but never had words for, then do this, drop a comment below. Tell me, what hit hardest for you? Was it something she once said that now makes more sense, or something she never said? That speaks volumes. Now, I read every single one. And your story might help someone else connect the dots. And if you're the kind of man who's done with surface level dating, who wants to understand the deeper psychology, the subtle patterns, the emotional signals most men miss, then subscribe right now. Because this channel isn't for guys who chase, it's for men who choose. With strength, with stillness, with eyes open.